outstanding and world-class vision and world-class this.
I'm a real leadership geek, honestly. I've spent my whole career reading books and chatting to people.
I just find the whole thing and the announcement, the way it's been announced, bizarre.
If you could move away from a model where teachers are so intensely focused.
Good evening and welcome to tonight's edition of Education Tonight here on Teachers Talk Radio. Fantastic. Got our guests kind of lined up, so we're kind of raring to go tonight. Are you okay, Brent?
I thought you were going to do an Adrian Kroner there, the way you sort of said, good morning.
Yeah.
I love that movie. I love Robin Williams' The World. It's such a poor place without people like Robin Williams in it, you know?
How many films have you watched this week?
None. No, I've decided that in my wisdom, I am not going to fall into the trap of saying that the last week of term, so we do nothing value. Now, I did use video excerpts. I did slightly change the lesson structure a little bit. But even the children at today's history lesson was a who do you think you are? So I did a little bit of investigating some surnames of the children and heraldic shields and backgrounds. Fascinating lesson. Always keep that one up my sleeve. You see my year 11s. We've finished the mock exams last week. We were doing Peterloo Massacre and looking at Manchester Guardian and democracy. They got stuck into their work. So none of the classes I decided.
I think they do respect it, don't they? If you kind of keep going, because they just get a bit bored, don't they? Ultimately, so
I think because other classes had done the kind of the quizzes and the videos, they were coming into me and they got the kind of collective groan of, "Oh, sir, you're actually going to make us do work." And I thought, "Yep, we're doing work here. Otherwise, I'm a glorified babysitter. And when your parents say keep you off school and say you do no work at the end of term, I'm that guy that says you do." So, but I also felt, sounds weird to say it, but I don't like the kind of class where, when it gets rowdy and it gets noisy and everything else. I just think that controlled measure, and maybe I'm getting older, that controlled measure, let's do some work, now tomorrow's pantomime. Tomorrow I'm playing at the Wharf in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, so we completely collapsed the timetable. We have our assemblies, act of worships, we do our partridge in a pear tree. So we do our whole show. So we put a show on, staff put a show on. We sing a song every year. This year is Rocking Around the Christmas Tree. So tomorrow is when we let our hair down, and tomorrow is the day we, dress up in Christmas outfits and do the kind of silly stuff. But we get to tomorrow to do that, if that makes sense. And that's what
I did feel I think Frank Norris shared it that his granddaughter or family member had everything cancelled because they had an Ofsted call on Wednesday. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday kind of visit from Ofsted, literally before Christmas, and the school basically cancelled all performances and everything else, which seems like particularly harsh, isn't it?
Well, you could have the Ofsted inspectors in as the pantomime villains.
The Ugly Sisters.
Oh no, they're not. Oh yes, they are. Here come the pantomime villains.
That'd be great, wouldn't it? If you put the inspectors on a chair on the stage and did the performance around it.
Here come the Ofsted inspectors.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Yeah, and then they could rate, the kids could do like a rating at the end, couldn't they?
Oh, rate the Ofsted inspector. You know what I mean? Which one's playing the game? You know.
Yeah, so we've got a really busy show tonight, so I want to crack on, Brent. We've got Alan Sweet coming in to discuss the pay deal and kind of is that enough? But as all teachers are at the minute, we found this, and actually our very own Nathan Lesson Copy put this image together. A couple of he said it's his, so I believe him. So thank you, Nathan, for your kind of continual graphics on social media. But this one particularly tickled me when I showed a few colleagues, and as I was kind of walking around our kind of college today, I heard the Kahoot music kind of coming out of every room. So it really did make me laugh how quickly kind of it diverted. I just wondered kind of if we get the stats from Kahoot, that'd be great on kind of what they pick up of of Kahooties during this kind of end of term period. That'd be really
Our
interesting.
ICT guys put a notice out last Friday saying, if you're thinking of streaming services, blah, 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 just be careful of our bandwidth, this at the off, which I replied, no, not till Thursday. And so there was a lot of sort of smiling back. And equally, I had two this year. Normally is a few more. That the word when I do not say these words to Poland, why? You're going to get it. And I had the Russell Crowe scene ready to go. And one student, bright and bushy tail, came in and went, Mr. Poland, sir, are we doing something? And the rest of the kids went, no, something fun. And then they realized, and that's it. He got the full 5 minutes of like, you go home and tell your mother today, cook me some nice dinner for a change because your cooking is crap. It's crap, obviously. That's what I meant to say. Would you turn around to your dentist and say, here, you're usually terrible dentist. Any chance of drilling my teeth correctly this time? So don't walk into my classroom and tell me my lessons are usually boring. Can I do something more exciting than usual? Thanks very much.
Yeah, it's just rude, isn't it? It's just really rude.
Yeah, but it's this thing like, can we do something fun today? Inference. You're normally a bore off. Make your lessons a little bit more fun. And literally, and the rest of the reaction of the rest of the children, he didn't get the memo. Just don't do it. Whatever you do, don't push that button. Do not go there. Because later it was are you not entertained?
Yeah.
Are you not entertained? Am I not here to entertain you?
Yeah.
So no, I don't fall for that anymore.
Yeah. Well, shall I tell you 3 things that are fun, Brent?
Yeah. Teachers Talk
John
Radio.
John Katz, Parent Kind, and Teachers Talk Connect. So this show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources. That's why they call me the Richard Madeley of Teacher Talk Radio. Resources.
Oh, stop! That doesn't make me Judy. I mean, no. You're not making me Judy in that. I mean, Richard, you want to be Richard Madeley? Not a chance. Have you seen his later career? You might as well be the Jeremy Kyle of Teacher Talk Radio.
It's like Richard Madeley / kind of Alan Partridge, I guess.
That's not the Aaron Holmes, doesn't it?
Right, can I get through the advert?
No.
John Katz has brought publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore a full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Parent Kind is a national charity representing parents' views and voices and championing parent participation, education, and school life. By fostering strong school parent partnerships, we boost school attendance, improve behavior, and enhance academic performance. When parents actively participate, students thrive. Join the movement that reshapes education for the better. Visit parentkind.org to learn more about reaping the rewards of partnership with parents. So as you can see, Brent, from all the comments you had last week from parents, we do support parents and we do kind of actively seek their involvement in school. We want them to kind of be an active part of school environment. And we've kind of regularly said that on Teacher Talk Radio.
I don't know if they were actually supporting me or criticizing me.
I think we'll leave that one. But just one quick comment. What did make me laugh is the more angry they got, the more your name got wrong. I think it ended up as Bent or something, or Brett Bet.
Well, what's interesting was my original opening gambit was that parents are losing respect for education and losing respect for don't respect schools and don't respect teachers. And by the end of it, I'm going, thank you for proving my point while proving my point, and here you are proving my very point. Thank you very much for your interactions. Do you think this is the way to go about it? Well, you disrespect parents. I am a flipping parent of 2 children. Do you think I don't wear a different hat?
Right, cool. Should we finish the ads? So we've got Teachers Talk Radio. Team is in Manchester for Teachers Talk Connect on Saturday, the 1st of March, 2024. It's our biggest ever free event. We've got on the main stage, we've got Lee Parkinson Books, that's Mr. P ICT, and Katie Jones. We can also attend subject-specific CPD sessions and experience amazing network opportunities. Tickets are free. Visit ttradio.org to find out more and get your ticket today. So I think we're going to go up and kind of support that and get involved with that as well. So please come and say hello. And remember, Brent's kind of doing a raffle and giving away free things as well.
But you do get to meet some of your teachers. You know, you
He's
do.
not doing that. Don't get a ticket expecting a free thing from Ben.
No, but they're good. They're very, very good. Those meetings, because it's good for CPD, good for resources, good to network, and you do get to meet the odd, teacher sort of legend and luminaries. I mean, and people whose books you may have been using in the classrooms. Nothing better when you've been using some of these textbooks and you finally meet that person who makes your textbooks. And you go, and then you realize that you're pronouncing their name wrong for 20 odd years. It's good. Yeah. It's all good.
Right, cool. Should we get Alan on, because I'm sure he's kind of eager to kind of get on this evening and speak to us. So good evening, Alan. Are you okay?
Evening all. Thank you. Yes, just about scraping my way across to the finish line for tomorrow.
Have you got one more day left?
Yeah. I've got a year, I think, on my timetable tomorrow. Well, on a Friday, I work at a secondary school, and they run a 2-week timetable, and I think my timetable tomorrow is 7, 10, 11 and 13.
Ooh.
So
you finished with 13. That's nice.
Well, they've got to. We don't have enough time. 20 weeks and counting, guys. 20 weeks and counting.
The maddest one I've heard
is me then. Yeah, because that's literally my exam classes. Well, I'm sorry, guys. I've got 2 weeks over Christmas to do that, but and fair play to them. They have shown that sort of discipline of going. I think they appreciate that, because it's a sense of urgency of what's the point of wasting that hour when you can get that done and then square that off for Christmas. So yeah,
absolutely.
Well, sorry, gentlemen, but I broke up today, so.
Boo. Boo.
The weirdest one I've heard is there's a local school to us here in the centre of Derby, and one of the children, I was doing an interview for one of their college applications. They said to me, I'm in till 11 o'clock tomorrow. 11 o'clock? That seems like the oddest time to kind of send children home. It's like, so you're there for like 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours?
That is so getting a mark for the half day to get
the half day mark in the bag.
Yeah. That's what that is. That's to engineer the mark, not to destroy their attendance percentage. That's exactly what that is.
Okay.
Excellent.
Well, we're here to discuss the pay deal. So we've got some kind of figures on the table now. We've got some kind of responses, particularly from Daniel Kebedy, who's kind of straight off the mark with this one. As you can imagine, that's kind of his kind of day job to kind of get in there. So where are we, chaps? Maybe go to Alan first. Is this pay deal enough going forward for teaching? What are your thoughts?
Well, absolutely not. Simply because teachers shouldn't be made scapegoats of the wider macroeconomic conditions that this new government faces. And I think that the Department of Education and the Secretary of State herself has misread the situation entirely. I'm also disappointed that the unions have fought a fight so far, but they're not kind of picking up the vibe of the membership adequately enough that we who work in schools face a tough struggle day in, day out. We're still living the legacy of COVID. For those of us who are working with year 11 students who are struggling with preparing for GCSEs and not having had that experience of a full kind of cycle of secondary school life. My own offspring, my eldest, they had a really mixed experience going into year 7, and now as they approach their final term for GCSE, it's just a terrible experience for them. And the school that they attend is rack infested, and it's not being adequately addressed. You've also got to think too that having experienced the part of the discussions over public sector expenditure as a former Whitehall Womble, I sat at that table with the Treasury, and every minister would fight a good fight for their cause and their department. And I'm not entirely sure that the current team at the Department of Education did that with the current Treasury team. So that's kind of my take.
Yeah.
But you've also got to remember.
I think the feeling is that teachers got a big kind of pay rise last time. That was kind of fought. That was won. So now it's time to kind of settle down a little bit. Then, if we go again, this is going to be a forever thing of keep it going higher and higher and higher. So we now need to get it back down to a kind of more sensible.
No, as I say, I think the current team at the Department of Education and the current team at the Treasury have completely misread the situation entirely. That you cannot blame teachers for the macroeconomic kind of shocks that this country has faced over the last 8 years following the departure of this country from the European Union. Those macroeconomic shocks were inevitable. We heard today about the Bank of England not wanting to lower interest rates because they're still fighting the fight over inflation, etc. So it's just teacher bashing. It's just continuous teacher bashing. And
is there not some consistency here though with like WASPs, with the kind of the winter fuel allowance? Is there not at least some kind of consistency here in government with if they broke ranks with teachers' pay, then all those other decisions look a little bit kind of out of sync?
Yeah, absolutely. I get that. But the message that the unions have been sending through, I think, is just kind of insufficient, because the reality of it is that you and I and all of us who are working in classrooms are working in crumbling buildings. We're working with a workload that is such that we can't. We've given so much goodwill over the last 10 years, and to be shown this kind of derisory offer is not understanding what we have been trying to do for the last 10 years. And
you've hit one of Brent's bingo words there, goodwill. I can see you smile, Brent, as soon as you heard. Yeah, well, I think that's one of the key words that we cross off, and goodwill is there.
I'm going to put cards on the table. It's going to be very hard to be balanced tonight, Adam, because I mean, you're singing completely from a lot of my hymn sheet. What I will pick up on is obviously which Womble were you? Were you Uncle Bulgaria, or were you or an Uncle? Which department were you involved in?
I was. Yeah, I mean, this is where the small world moment comes in, and my personal experience of working with the current Prime Minister. In the final kind of 3-4 years, I was at the Crown Prosecution Service. Keir Starmer was the Director of Public Prosecutions. I personally know that he has this kind of style where he's really kind of not the person I would have wanted to see at number 10, because he's, as far as I'm concerned, he's just as selfish as the lot that we've kicked out.
Well, the irony is my first introduction to him was actually, we did a CPS project, school project, believe it or not, to Derbyshire CPS. So I was aware of Keir Starmer when he was ahead of the CPS, and of course I was aware of him when he was over in Northern Ireland reorganising the PSNI. And he was a bureaucrat, and he was a bureaucrat then, and he's a bureaucrat now. But to add to what you're saying, and I think that you say 8 years, I go further back. I go back to George Osborne austerity, and I go back to We're All in It Together. I go back to really the 2010 and the end of the previous Labour government. And that's where I think the rot started to come in, where public sector was basically sacrificed in order to, basically bail out the banks and bail out the financial crash, which wasn't caused by us. So I've often felt that we started the burden of digging the country out of its hole. And that, I think the same goes for police, the same goes for social services, the same goes for NHS. The parallels with the NHS and teaching are starting to be very, very, succinct, in the sense my wife's NHS, I see it. I see how it's easy to have a go at social services when they make a mistake. Well, of course they make a mistake. They're overworked, they're underpaid. Who would do the job when you one mistake away from making the tabloid press? Same goes for us. Constantly undermined. It's almost like there is an agenda to destroy, in stealth, not so much stealth, the public sector, And what I would add to that, what worries me, is that the future of artificial intelligence and automation would make it that it would be easier if you were destroying something to ultimately replace this with automation, and that makes it, solves cost-cutting problems. So I don't understand why they're not, wanting to pay professionals higher, because from my perspective, you are doing more as a teacher. There's mission creep with less resources. So in fact, we've never been more efficient than ever. And every time somebody says to me, technology is going to make your life more efficient, I would reject that, because technology has been bleeding into education, and yet my job's getting harder and harder, and yet my use of technology is increasing exponentially. So there doesn't seem to be increasing technology making things more efficient. If anything, increasing technology is leading to more bureaucracy and more double entries and stuff like that. So from my point of view, what I would really like to know is, where does the money come from? Because I don't buy into austerity politics. I never have bought into austerity politics, because they find the money for wars. They'll always find the money for, this trust could find it for tax cuts. So I've never been a big fan of this idea there's a pot of money that the government have to spend and they stay within their budgetary constraints. I think COVID, and the way things happened during COVID, completely blew that out of the water. The government prints its own money, and in fact, this country sovereignly can print its own money, and therefore can write off its own debt to a certain extent. And when you're paying public sector workers, this is the one I can't really understand. And you could probably suggest whether this is true or not. When they pay us, they actually get a lot of that money back. It's not as if we're squirreling that money off in tax havens, because teachers pay taxes. So actually, effectively, we're paying our own wages. Now we're going to spend that money, aren't we? So that's actually going to help the economy. So if you're paying public sector workers more, that's not going to really inflate inflation that much, because we are actually going to be paying some of that money back in taxes. So there's an economic situation where we ourselves will actually benefit the economy by pay rising us, because that money that we will circulate in the economy will actually help stimulate growth and stimulate. So if you want to stimulate growth, playing your public sector is not exactly, we're going to have the money squirreled off in some of the 49 tax havens around the world. And that I can't understand, because the government is our employer. Therefore, giving us a pay rise comes from the government, and therefore some of the pay rise will be clawed back in immediate taxation in paying us more, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I mean, I studied economics at university, and the period that you're talking about, Brent, in government, was when I was actually at that sharp edge, and we saw the way the funding for criminal justice, as you say, healthcare, was all just knocked back just to bail out the political party supporters, essentially. That's the way I read it. It's a rejection of this kind of Keynesian economic kind of vision, essentially. And it's for what purpose? It's just for their personal popularity. It's not about public service at all. And as you say as well, Brent, that this concept of sorry, it's getting to that point in the school year where you think, I can't even string technical words together. I was grateful to this morning to have been serving lunches to a bunch of 4 and 5-year-olds in my research class.
You've lost the power of speech.
Yeah.
I came home, Brent, we had like a little bit of a pre-show talk. I said, I'm going to go to bed. I'm going to go for a nap. Before I had to have a nap, I was so tired. So don't worry about it.
Yeah. But there's an economic concept called monopsony, where you have one big buyer of goods and services, and you've got many suppliers of that goods or service, and schools and teachers are that example. Essentially, we all work for them. We all work for the man. We all work for one big kind of corporate identity called school. We're all teachers. And essentially, what this government has seen and previous governments have seen is that they recognize this kind of operation, and they think, well, maybe we could McDonaldize the way teaching is delivered. We saw in COVID times that they thought, actually, we could possibly outsource this to teachers around the world to deliver virtual lessons. And
We're going to have to get the McDonaldization T-shirts, Brent, because that's the second guess.
This is two in a row.
In a couple of weeks.
There you go.
That's another bingo word for us. Yes, thanks for bringing in that kind of extra insight into economics. I'm sure our kind of listeners will kind of really appreciate that. Do you think this is going to have a kind of direct impact on retention and recruitment, though? Because
Absolutely.
There is an argument, isn't there, that teachers are not driven by pay, and they're actually keener in some instances to deal with things like workload, long hours, behavior. All those other things are kind of in the mix as well. I know we all want to be paid, but I guess some people would argue in the wider society, 40 oddish grand for a secondary school teacher on the top end. It's a kind of decent salary. It's not the greatest salary, but it's a decent salary. Should we be more focused on some of the other issues around teaching in terms of those workload issues? And
but behavior and all these other things that you've just mentioned, Adam, will not feed my kids, will not clothe my family, will not provide me with all of life's essentials. That's the bottom line. I look at my my pay slip this month, where it's kind of settled back to the current kind of pay award, and it's an extra £100. Where's that gone? Well, it's actually gone on my fuel bills. My fuel bills have gone that way. Where my council tax has gone that way. So it's not. It's just insulting to say, you know what, lads and lasses, we're really sorry, but the coffers are empty. You know the situation. We have to all pull together now. Here's 2.85% for you, and don't forget, AI is on its way to replace your jobs. That's not what I went into teaching for. I came into teaching because I believe that we need to build a future-proof society.
Well, you probably went into the same reason I went into, for social mobility, for the next generation to improve, to go forward, to progress, to be better, to have more opportunities, to increase the sort of the potential of the country. And this, again, I don't understand the long-term vision for the country, because, I mean, Rishi Sunak said himself, if he had one silver bullet, it'd be education. I'm a working class kid. I made good because I got free education, went to university. I was that period of time where there was that door was half open. I took that opportunity. Looking at the kids coming behind me, they're just not going to have the same opportunities. And that's sort of sad. He's just got his camera. So what I was going to suggest is, I think from my point of view,
where do you see this going? I mean, like, obviously, you don't mind me saying you're a union rep, aren't you?
Yeah.
You have a little bit of an insight in this. So obviously, we had the kind of the fiasco of the last pay deal, and we've talked about it on the show before. We kind of had, was it 6 days in the end? 8 days, sorry. 8 days of strikes.
On the 8 days of strikes, my union rep said to me.
Yeah. So the 8 days of strikes, and I've said kind of after that point, it felt like we kind of, as a profession, we kind of settled a little bit. I know at some point we had to move on, but was there a key point there where we should have held ground a little bit more with the government at the time? Are we seen as now like a bit more of a soft touch? So therefore, a new government can kind of come in, dangle a kind of 2.8% carrot over our heads, and hope that that's just a box ticked and job done.
I felt at the time, and I have fed this back personally to Daniel Kennedy when I met him at the Green Party conference, and I spoke to him in the flesh for the first time, and we were it sounds like we were on a lift, and I was like, okay, Daniel, what happened? Why didn't we follow through? We were just at the point where all the unions were getting together, the band was together, momentum was there, teachers were out picketing, and we took the 5.5%. And he did there was the feeling in the room that there was strike fatigue, and that's as far as we could get. And we didn't want to end up like the situation where they had the train drivers. And you look at the train drivers now, they end up a lot more. And the same with the doctors. So I personally felt that I voted no to accept the deal. But I know a lot of my colleagues voted yes because the union recommended that, because they're in the room, they're negotiating in the room, they've got the read of what they're told is obviously going to happen. So I can't criticize the people who negotiated when you don't know, privy to everything that they're able to negotiate, how far they could push. But I know personally from my own experience, and I know that the left of the unions, left of the NEU, was certainly saying this is not enough, this is not pay restitution. And I almost equated it to Michael Collins coming back from, Downing Street and saying, well, we've got a stepping stone to United Ireland. They just won't give us the North, but it'll come along anytime soon. 100 years later, we're still looking for that. So there's an element I felt that the opportunity was missed. I felt the opportunity at the time was missed because the profession had been motivated. The profession had been woken up from its slumber, because teachers are slow to motivate. Same as nurses and doctors in the public sector don't always, in this generation, tend to go on strike. And I've got people who I've never seen before go on strike because they just felt that the time is enough. COVID, everything they've gone through, they reached that critical point where they thought, that's it, we'll make a stand on this occasion. And the NES didn't initially join us, but they had actually balloted and were about to join us. So that would have been, and the head teachers unions were about to join as well. That would have been that one time where all the teaching unions would have been united, and they took the 5.5%. So I didn't agree with it. I didn't, and I agree with Alan in that. I think the brinkmanship, no disrespect to Kevin and Mary, a lot of respect for those two as union leaders of the NEU, especially what they did during COVID. But I certainly think that they blinked and they took the deal, which many were happy with, because at the time it seemed like a generous offer at 5.5%, considering what inflation had gone down to. And the same goes for the idea that this was a stepping stone, was the narrative that came out from the likes of Daniel Kennedy. This is the first.
Inflation with the argument had started to come down, but it had been at record highs almost
10-12% at one stage, wasn't it?
During that time. What do you think now, Alan, about that argument around the inflation argument and pay? Because that's going to be a bit more iffy, isn't it?
It doesn't. As Brent says, it really doesn't wash with me. I'm with Brent completely, that having sort of walked past the picket lines over the last couple of terms, as it were, I could see and felt the strike fatigue. It was hurting us in our pockets, and we couldn't do any more unless something more radical could be kind of mobilized. So, but really, this relationship of pay and inflation is something that I think we as a community need to accept and say, well, as Brent says, paying public sector workers, whether we're in healthcare, whether in criminal justice or education, we're not the problem here with inflation. There are wider macroeconomic issues that have caused the kind of price shocks that we currently face in the UK. So it isn't us. Don't blame us. Just help us bring our country to a point where education is a world-class standard.
So the next question then, kind of, what is the pay deal then? What would get you saying, instead of going "oi no" to me, what would you be saying yes to?
I would want to see the way schools are kind of financed and structured to be better. I mean, to say 2.85% within within your existing budget is just doubly insulting.
That's not going to work, is it? Because
exactly.
You have to get rid of people for that.
Because then my bosses would say, well, sort of the big boss would then say, well, actually that means job cuts. I wouldn't stand for that. I, like Brent, I voted to stay on strike action if it was going to be a situation of 5.5% that was within existing budgets. That isn't. It's all about whether you fund a pay rise or you don't fund a pay rise.
Yeah.
Schools need the money to be able to keep the building open, to have the professionals in to provide the quality of teaching, learning and pastoral support that we all recognize to be the kind of standard that parents and families expect. And that's what I'm asking for.
See, for me, the secondary issue is, and it's much like the NHS situation, you could throw 50 billion into education. And there is a lot of money in education at the moment. There is a lot of money being thrown in certain areas, but it has been disastrously misspent and disproportionately at higher echelons of bureaucracy and expanding middle management and expanding roles within schools and maths. And there is money going into consultancies. There's money in all of the companies that seem to be providing services towards education are making an absolute killing. The PFI scandal, I don't understand why that's not hit the critical media yet, where you have schools paying out huge money to contracts, to companies, and that's not going into the classroom. So for me, we can't have an unfunded pay rise because we're robbing Peter to pay Paul. We're taking money from the actual children to give to us. And we as teachers end up doing the opposite. We end up putting money into our schools, our own classrooms, buying our own resources, our own thing, buying our own glue sticks. How much money the average teacher spends is about 350 to 400 pounds a year. And that's because we're givers, we're altruistic, but our altruism is being used against us because, oh, good old teachers, they'll stick it out because they're those kindly, nice people who are driven towards the better good. But that has been used against us because we've stuck it out because we are in it for those things. But it's not fair when you see, it's not just about my pay. It's not fair when I don't see the children getting the money and the money going into the classroom. So to then say to my teacher today, do you know that the 2.8% is going to be unfunded? And he nearly spat his coffee out when he was talking to me. He's like, what is this? Yes, 2. So where are they going to get that money from? He says, efficiencies. He went, well, I know that's code word for it. And he goes, yeah, you and I both know what that's code word. And he literally gave me the stir of like, well, we can't accept that. And I went, good, because that was exactly what it would be. And I literally saw in his eyes the dread of like, they want me to find 2.8% from what? From the lack of school trips we're doing, from the budget to do maintenance. Where would he get that 2.8%? And obviously 75 to 80% of schools running costs are in wages. So there's your biggest hit. So it is going on wages. And when I look at some of my colleagues who are already at full capacity and timetables, they're doing multiple subjects. They're already at a situation where class sizes are creeping up. So where are you going to find those efficiency savings except, it's not the CEOs and the highly bureaucratic middle bureaucrats that seem to be growing in education are the contracts that are coming in from PFI companies. It will be, again, the squeeze on TAs, the squeeze on vital services, the squeeze on young staff, and young staff not getting their pay and progression, not going up the structure, being held back on their pay, and then they leave the profession. So that's, for me, is the scenario that will play out if they don't get this funded, because the squeeze of money will then be passed on, and those cuts will have to be made, and those cuts will then mean to all of those things.
And it's the experienced teachers who end up paying for it, because people like me, I openly share the fact that I'm M6. I'm unaffordable. So, if the bosses want to make a sacrifice, I recognise that. Yeah, people like us.
You go through.
It's me, because I'm 20-year veteran. I'm the expensive one, and you're right. But then there's also what I've seen as well is the lack of sometimes some schools not giving the pay rise to young professionals to keep them in. So you take the shortage of some subjects. If you're a graduate in your maths and your science and your STEM subjects, you want to keep those people in teaching. You want to give them maybe from M1 to M3 pay rise. But some hard up trusts aren't to be able to do that, so that you'll lose those people. And I'm noticing the amount of time that people stay in education gets less and less, because the progression would not be the same as it would be in a comparable career. And that's not fair, because you want to reward talent, you want to develop people like that, and you want to financially reward them to incentivize they stay. But at the same time, you don't want people just coming in for the money. But it's not just about the money, it's about the respect, that pay is reflective of your talent and abilities. I mean, we're tasked with actually saying to children, get a job which you're worth value. We say to the actual children we teach about their worth, while we ourselves are accepting that we're not as worth as probably as much as we are. So it's a weird thing where we're preaching to the kids about, get a good career, get a good education, play by the rules. If you play by the rules, say, this is how it works out, get yourself to university and you get a better job. Except for us, of course, because this doesn't work for us, because we're just teachers, who cares about us? Like, we're expendable. So it's a strange one. Cool. Right.
Can you press in kind of what about the kind of the hierarchies in schools? Do you think money's being spent well at the minute that's actually been put into education in terms of different pay at the different levels? And we've had a conversation with Pan Jarvis a couple of weeks about kind of maths and that type of thing. Obviously, you talked about kind of structural change there. Is that the sort of structural change you're talking about as well, in sort of stripping out some of those kind of layers of, I guess, people being paid for CEO and CEO of director of education across this site and that site, and all this other stuff?
I'm really sorry, but I'm going to have to revert to my Jim Hacker impersonation of saying, you might think that, but I couldn't possibly comment.
Lovely, well done.
I think you know where I'm coming from, chaps.
Yeah.
Is that yes minister or yes prime minister? Which are we?
Both, whichever vintage you prefer.
Okay, let's change tack then. What about kind of parents within this? How do we kind of get? Is it an opportunity to get parents involved here? Really kind of think about kind of building that support. Now.
Yeah, I mean, the school I work for is absolutely. They have a fantastic parent body, and pretty much like your advertorial earlier, talking about families supporting, parent kind supporting schools. And as I say, my school's parent body is just absolutely brilliant. They kind of come front and center of school life. They make themselves available to come in to support teaching and learning directly by bringing their expertise in to share on STEM days or career days. They support us with fundraising. They take an active interest in their children's teaching and learning. So by coming in, they see firsthand how easy or difficult it is for us to deliver the lessons that we do to the quality that we do. And I'm really proud that my door's always open. And recently, on a plus side, one of the prospective families said to my head teacher, said, "I can't believe your computer science teaching is of such a standard that I work in." The dad apparently said to the head teacher, "I work in cybersecurity, and I wouldn't have personnel learning about network structures in the way your teachers are teaching. It's just absolutely phenomenal." But that's the kind of quality that we deliver, and it's that message that I want the government to be able to see, and perhaps families will be able, if they could show and share that through the ballot box, then maybe we'll have a different story.
I think part of the problem as well is, though, that the schools have become a little bit closed off. We talked a couple of weeks ago about kind of a community school that I worked in, and it was kind of free flowing with kind of different stakeholders coming in all the time. And then since that became kind of a chain, the gate kind of came up. I know the safeguarding kind of rules, but everything kind of like froze really, and all that kind of input that we had from the outside kind of went. And actually, they didn't really have that input, so it was quite a kind of closed shop. So some of that scrutiny, some of that feedback, some of that kind of critical thought from the outside kind of stopped. And I thought that was a kind of a real shame. So therefore, that community didn't really know what happens behind these gates. It's a bit like kind of Willy Wonka's chocolate factory behind the gates. No one really knew what happened.
But also, communities should have a say in their education. I mean, I obviously studied my history, and I know that schools, when they first set up in our part of the world, were set up in secret by communities to educate in secret because they weren't allowed to be educated. And as a result of that, there was a heavy participation in education from a lot of people because they cared about education. They had the value of education. They had control over education. They had control over a say in how their children were educated. I think there's a massive disconnect in the breaking of the social contract because the corporatization of schools has led people to lose, I think, the identity of the schools. They get rebranded, they get a new uniform, and they get corporatized. And as a result, I think there's a lot of problems created now because the disconnect between communities and their schools, but also teaching as well. Because one of the problems would be say you and I get our way out, Alan, when we say, right, let's get teachers a really good pay rise. Let's return my pay to the 19 to 20% I've lost since 2010. So let's give me a pay rise and get me back in line where I should have been if these macroeconomic shocks have not happened. How do I then justify that when there are people now in society saying schools aren't as good, I'm not sending my child to school, schools are toxic, attendance rates are decreasing, the curriculum is not acceptable. It's getting harder to justify, not because of the service we're as teachers trying to provide, but just the perception and the reputation and the education system of why should we pay people in education that's not actually being successful. So therefore, it's harder for us to justify a pay rise when the actual education system is in decline. You see the sort of difficulty of us then saying, because it's kind of like an investment thing. If we need to invest in the education system, but then again, it's a bad investment at the moment, because if our education system is a business, it would be closed down a long time ago because it ain't working. There's no consistency between it, is it?
I mean, you're absolutely right, Brent, and it's what you were saying, Adam, about transparency, that because we are a public service, it doesn't matter, what shade or flavor school that you work in. Essentially, education was historically established as a kind of philanthropic through philanthropic means, and it became a kind of a social instrument, which has now become an economic instrument since the 1970s. So we are a public service, and for providing that public service, I operate on complete transparency. People who follow me on social media will know that I openly share all of my lesson planning, all of my ideas, because other people have paid for it. Other people have paid me to do what I do. I keep my door open. Anybody can walk in. Anybody can come and visit anytime they want. And it's about that accountability, and what Brent was saying about how originally teaching was provided by some religious orders. Look at the state of the established kind of churches in the UK right now, and talk about safeguarding. But that's another debate for another show, another time. But coming back to the point of teaching and learning, is that I'm really proud of doing what I do, and teaching computing, technology, and the STEM-centric learning that I provide. So I'm more than happy to say, if you want to kind of show justification for what we do, then come and see what we do here in terms of teaching a world-class computing, science, technology, engineering offer.
Cool, brilliant. Well, I just want to say thank you very much for your time tonight, Alan. It's been a real treat, and thank you very much for being so open and honest. And I think we've learned a lot. We've gone through kind of economics to the history of schools and everything. So it's been an absolute treat. So we really appreciate you.
Really highbrow tonight, hasn't it?
Yeah. I think you got kind of accountability, McDonald'sization, and what was the other one?
Globalization, yeah.
We've hit all of Brent's buzzwords. So really appreciate your time, and hope you and your family have a lovely Christmas.
Brilliant. I really hope to see you chaps in Manchester on the 1st.
Oh, are you coming?
That would be fantastic. Well,
fantastic.
I'll bring my A game. I'll bring all the toys. I'll bring all the robots and the toys. You can all come and join in and play.
Okay, thank you very much. I really appreciate your time. Thank you. Good night.
As long as those robots don't replace us too.
Oh no! They'll play a good game of football.
Yeah, we'll try that.
Happy Christmas, dear.
Happy Christmas.
Cheers,
thank you. Bye. That was fantastic. So I just want to kind of say a quick thank you to, I think Alan did part of our job for us there, thanking Parent Kind. So obviously
very relevant. I mean, that was the whole point. I mean,
very relevant. Yeah, and again, we'll reiterate it again for people that are listening. Please listen to the whole show. Don't just grab a little bit. We are very supportive of parents, and we really appreciate their time they put in. And Parent Kind is a national charity that's representing parents' views and voices, championing those views as well. So visit Parent parentkind.org to learn more about reaping those. Also, it's not too late to get your John Catt book for maybe the last minute Secret Santa for a teacher friend or teacher colleague. Maybe even they've got a birthday coming up, or maybe just over Christmas you're in charge of this CPD bookshelf in your library or staff room or that type of thing, and you want to kind of get them kind of filled with.
If you're married to a teacher, a lot of teachers are married to teachers, so you could spoil, your spoil your other half, teaching other half with some CPD,
Yeah, that'd be a lovely little treat, wouldn't it, in the stocking?
Oh, yeah, that'll restore the spark of your marriage, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I was looking for definitely a John Catt book. That's what I was kind of really hoping for this Christmas. But you can get that by getting 20% off your order by going to JCTTR2425 and visit johncattbookshop.com. And as Alan said, double plug from him. That come and see us all on the Teachers Talk Radio team, as well as Mr. P and Katie Jones at the Teachers Talk Connect on the Saturday, the 1st of March in Manchester. So that's you to go to visit ttrradio.org to find out how you can get your free tickets. It looks like you can play football with Alan's robots, which will be a fantastic treat if he's there. So we've only got kind of, I just thought we'd kind of book a little bit of time out just to kind of discuss the year, Brent. It's kind of flown by really fast. Another year done on Teacher Talk Radio. Please go back and visit all the content that me and Brent have kind of put out there over the course of the year. Have you got any kind of highlights? Let's do a what went well on this year.
You're asking me this time of the year. What went well? Being in teaching?
Say positive. What's the what went well?
We survived another year.
And then
we survived another year in education. Yay! Brilliant. Yeah.
I thought initially it was kind of some quite positive rhetoric coming from Bridget Phillipson. Putting kind of education a bit more kind of front and center, being a bit more positive, talking to
talk.
I want to get to the what went well. You're going to go to the EDI.
Oh, sorry. What went well? Oh, yes. Yeah. We got a pay rise, or a kind of semi pay rise, so to speak. Yeah. And yeah, some of the mood music seems to be positive on send, and some of the right things have been said. Just a shame, that Granny's not getting her.
No.
Oh, sorry. Yep.
You have to stay structured with peer assessment. You have to stay kind of very structured on the work. I think kind of, we've got the kind of the seeds of a curriculum review that's kind of in place. Ofsted did do
I just was going to say Ofsted. I think there's movement in Ofsted. I think there's a definite feeling now that we've won not the war yet, but we've won some significant battles in pushing back Ofsted. So I think that is definitely a positive, but not a complete victory yet. We've won the battles, but we haven't won that war yet. And I think we're slowly sort of changing the sort of the paradigm on what Ofsted should be, and that's commendable. Again, goes out to people like Edmund and people who've been on our show, and people like Ruth's sister, who have done tireless work in campaigning. So I'd say one of the positives is getting the message out there, and of those that campaign for education. So I'd like to say thank you to all those parents actually that don't have a go at us teachers, that actually support us, that actually realize what the job we do, the silent majority. So actually I'd say what's positive is actually the bulk of kids I teach, the bulk of parents I teach, the bulk of parents of the kids I teach are still with us and still supportive of us. And when you look at public opinion on us as teachers, we still retain quite a high percentage of approval, despite the bashing, despite, the naysayers. So I think the positivity is the fact that we're still hanging in there, many of us, and still teaching and still doing the job. And the people who appreciate that maybe 10, 15 years down the line will appreciate. You said that last week, and you're smiling in your face when you talked about an ex-people that you'd met 12 years earlier, and you sort of realize the job that we do, sometimes we don't always get the immediate results.
Because they become a teacher as well.
Yeah, and it's great. So some of my highs this year have been actually to see some of my ex-pupils one of my most disadvantaged pupils I've ever taught, you know, at Oxbridge, getting a scholarship to Oxbridge, and then sending me a message thanking me directly and saying, "You're one of the reasons why I'm here." And I'm like, "Don't be silly, you've done this yourself." So seeing sometimes that the hard work pays off, and seeing the fruits of your labor that you've done over a career. So I wasn't joking when I saying surviving another year, because every year that goes by is another year that maybe as a teacher you sort of have laid the groundwork for future generation, and that you start to sit back and start to see some of those fruits bloom, and some of those people come back into education. But equally, you know, I've had come across different ex-pupils in different spheres of life, and they've always been positive. I had one first ever negative student who I met, and he was quite rude to me. But then I realized, well, that's just society.
We're still on what went well.
That's what went well.
I'm going to put you back. It's about being quick. Go on. You've got a couple. We've got 4 minutes on EBI comments and some targets going forward for next year.
Well, what's changed? You know, what really has changed, the direction of travel hasn't really changed, despite the talk from the Labour government. Don't see the practicalities on the ground. We're not feeling it on the ground.
Is it trying to turn a tanker though? Is the wheel gone round, but actually it takes a long time to get that boat kind of.
Maybe 1917 in the vernacular of World War I, and we can't see the end of the war yet because we're still, you know, stuck in the trenches. But we've got some new tactics, and there's a big push going on, and we've got a new sense of leadership with a new sense of direction with new weapons. Great, fantastic, but we're stuck in the middle of the trenches. I still think we're stuck in the middle of the trenches, fighting the good fight, and it can be really, really hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel. But then the light at the end of the tunnel comes when you walk into your classroom and you get a smile on a child's face and they get something and you taught them something, and then you realize the job's worth it. So it's just really hard to get through, sometimes to see through all the negativity. I think in society as general, I think there's problems in the wider UK society, decline. Of course,
yeah.
And I think that's what we're saying
about how those externalities really are starting to show themselves.
I think Alan mentioned it, war in Ukraine, or let's build more weapons. It feels like I'm stuck between, is it 1933 or is it 1949? You talk misogyny, rise of the far right. It's these things bleed into our classrooms and they start to affect. I think us as people, like the culture wars, all this nonsense with these culture wars being made up to drive people apart. Social media, vaping. Increase in spirit, and completely fictitious claims. It's just some things happening at the moment to the culture of society that's now creating, I think, a completely different sort of society culture that is making people more rebel against authority. And now you're seeing, so some of the negativity is this constant sort of chipping away of the vision of schools. I think this country needs to have a serious conversation with itself about what it wants out of education and educators, because there seems to be two schools of thought. And you saw that we discussed this about the current story going on about the school with the shouting. Do you want, line up, be quiet, do what you're told? Or do we want, you have to be creative? And I think this is the bigger conversation needs to be had with the heart and soul of what education is.
And that's why Teachers Talk Radio is here, Brent, and we'll be taking a little bit of a break over the Christmas period. Our next show is actually on the 9th of January. We'd like to thank kind of everybody that's listened to our show. I think we're I think our peak was about 1,200 viewers, which has been fantastic as well. So that's something to say thank you to everybody that's tuned in. We'd like to thank Lucy behind the scenes for all her hard work and helping us kind of keeping it kind of on track and keeping us going. We need those kind of pep talks before the show. That they're all very valuable to us. You can listen to and watch previous shows by scanning the QR code on the screen. We, from me and Brent, we'd just like to wish everyone a very, 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 very Merry Christmas. And
wait, stop. Merry or Happy Christmas? What do you say? Let's end on that one. Do you say Merry?
I think I'm a Merry, but are you going to now tell me that there's a kind of historical?
Well, Her Majesty the Queen never said Merry Christmas, because Merry infers drunkenness, leeriness, and bad behaviour, whereas Happy Christmas is more.
Well, I think as you say it more, that's going to summarise my Christmas.
So you're going to have a Merry
I'm
Christmas.
going there with a lovely pint of Guinness in my hand, and
You're going to have some merriment.
yeah,
Yeah. And
I'm going to go fairy tale of New York, Shane McGowan, and off I go.
Oh, last one.
Yeah.
Die Hard, Christmas movie or not?
I don't think so, but I know lots of people do. But anyway,
Gremlins, Christmas movie or not?
New Year's resolution. Brent's going to finish the show within an hour.
Yeah,
Happy New Year. Enjoy your Christmas time. Be safe.
Look after now yourself.
Get those batteries replenished and ready for 2025. But thank you very much. From the bottom of my heart, thank you everyone from Teacher Talk Radio and our listeners and viewers for tuning in. We really appreciate it.
I'm not upon Dieu ditch, as they say in Gaelic.
Okay. Happy New Year. See you later. See you next year. Goodbye.
Outstanding and world-class vision and world-class this.
I'm a real leadership geek, honestly. I've spent my whole career reading books and chatting to people.
I just find the whole thing and the announcement, the way it's been announced, bizarre.
If you could move away from a model where teachers are so intensely focused.